Is Savage raiding worth it in Final Fantasy XIV? What's up everybody, Marty here, and today I want to talk about Savage raiding. If this is the first video of mine you've ever seen and YouTube has slid me into your recommended, I'm a long-time MMORPG player. I played World of Warcraft for around 15 years, and I joined Final Fantasy in June of last year. So this was my first time pushing the hard content, the Savage raids, first ever raid tier, and I just wanted to make a video of, was it worth it? What were my experiences? How did I feel? Where did I get to? And after many painful months of pandaemonium, let's get into, is Savage raiding worth it? So grab a blanket, pour a hot chocolate, because I'm going to tell you a very long story. So as soon as Pandaemonium Savage got released on the 4th of January 2020, 4 weeks after the release of Endwalker, I decided I wanted to give it a try. I went in completely blind. I had no real experience on any class outside of leveling and general dungeons and, you know, the easy stuff that you never really have to knuckle down and learn the class. Didn't have a static, didn't have anyone to really go with, so I applied for my FC's static raiding group. I'm in a very casual FC. It was made clear at the start this was an extremely casual raiding FC, and new players are all welcome. So as a brand new player, this sounded perfect for me. It was only 1 day a week, so if I didn't like it, it's not too much of an issue. I joined and the FC set out 2 static teams, and we tried out different roles, the most needed of course being tanks and healers. I did a day of P1S as a paladin and a day of P1S as an astro. I loved healing. I completely fell in love with the healing aspect of Savage raiding, so I got put in the group of people that needed a healer, and I went in as an astrologian. And things started slow but good. We raided each week, we cleared P1S within around a month, and we cleared P2S within around 2 or 3 months, and I loved it. 1 day a week, hanging out with some really nice people, progressing some hard content. I streamed it on and off, learning mechanics, learning my class, learning how other classes work, buff windows, pots, uptime, all this stuff that is really important in Savage that I didn't know. Things like healing off the OC, off the global cooldown. All this stuff was completely new to me, and it was just such a learning experience in such a small amount of time that P1S and P2S were just incredible. And I made a video back then of my first impressions of Savage, and that was when I was at P2S, so I'll link that down below. Maybe it's a different perspective back then, but then we hit P3S and things got rough. Once we hit this big chicken, those sunny skies and rainbows passed, and we hit the real issues. Some people started missing raid days, some people had to leave and get replaced. Because we cleared P1S and P2S, we had to re-clear them every week, and that left us a small amount of time for P3. And due to how new some of us were, we made a lot of mistakes. So progression slowed down. There was no area here to be a rookie healer. There was nowhere here to drag your feet and get carried as a damage dealer. Tanks couldn't mess up mechanics. There was really, every single part of this fight felt punishing. And we had to optimize, we had to get better, and we had to really improve to beat this boss. Despite everything, we finally cleared it on, I think, the 3rd of May. And when I talk about is Savage raiding worth it, that whole umbrella of the discussion, that feeling of clearing it can't be beat. There's no other euphoria, no other huge moment than that moment. There's massive parts of the MSQ where something happens and you're hyped, and they're amazing, but nothing compared to the feeling of finally beating P3S after months of grind, wiping at every single fight, every single part of the fight. That feeling of beating it with all the friends, people screaming on Discord, I can't top that. That was incredible. But then we went to P4, and somehow things got a little worse. Despite finally clearing P3, we now had to clear P3 every week. And it wasn't that we couldn't go in there for 4 hours and knock our head against the wall. We had to go in there and 1 or 2 shot it, so we had time to learn P4. And P4 felt like a fairly hard fight, nothing like P3 though, but we felt like time was getting shorter and shorter, so we added a second raid day. A second day dedicated to progging P4S, so we would re-clear 1 to 3 on one day and then go in and prog P4 on the other day. Due to being a very, very casual raid group, not everyone could make the second raid day. That alone would have been manageable, but then we hit what I'm going to call a semi-content drought. The Endwalker hype was wearing off. There was very little to do unless you were raiding Dragonsong Ultimate, and people were getting a little bored, and they were just logging in for the raid. And we were raiding 2 days a week, so they were just logging in to raid 2 days a week, myself included at some points as well. And the re-clear day felt like a chore. Some days one person would go in and re-clear it all for us. Some days we would all go in and re-clear. but the reclear days felt like a chore, and then progression on P4 just felt forced. People were struggling to make the second raid day. Filling in the holes with Party Finder was pretty common, and progression was just slowing down. Motivation was dropping, and ultimately it went to a vote. How much do we want this? Do we really want this, or are we just forcing it? And we could see that our progress in P4 wasn't progressing. Like we were a good group by the end of it. We could easily clear P4. I'm very confident that if everyone was motivated and hungry, we could have cleared it. But that just wasn't the case. Myself included, I'm with that as well. I was only logging into raid. It felt like a chore. It was getting long. It's been 3+ months and it was feeling long. So ultimately, we decided to stop. The static fell apart. We left on very, very good terms. Everyone was really proud of how far we got. We had a lot of fun, and we didn't want to force that and ruin that fun by picking it all apart. We got as far as we got, and we were happy with how far we got. If people wanted to continue, they could form a separate group, but overall our static was going to stop. And if I had to sum up my experience of Savage raiding, I'd say it's some of the most fun I've ever had in Final Fantasy XIV. Learning the mechanics with a group of friends, pushing some really hard content, getting the best loot in the game, and those moments of finally clearing the bosses were amazing. Something I really enjoy was how hard P1 felt at the start. Going in now and trying to cut 10 seconds off your time, or trying to go in there and not use a single global cooldown healing spell, or going in there and knowing exactly when my moves need to go off to perfect certain parts of the fight. And I really like the progression you feel alongside those fights. I learned a lot about Astro and healing in general, to the point where I now love the class. I find healing extreme content a breeze now, and overall, playing Savage has made me a much better player, much better healer, especially an Astro healer. But the time commitment and repetitiveness were rough. I'm a 31-year-old guy. I've got a full-time job, YouTube channel, I live stream. So committing 1 to 2 whole days, whole evenings per week over like 3 or 4 months was a massive drain on time. And I felt more and more frustrated when people couldn't make the raid, or we struggled to prog, or we just had a bad day, or we had to re-clear the same content again and again. Again and again! I got frustrated, and it was frustrating me more and more how much of a time commitment this was taking. And you hit a point where you're fully geared and you're just going to help other people get gear, or you're just progressing and not making that progress. And yeah, it can get rough. So overall, I'm kind of conflicted. Will I continue Savage raiding? I don't know. I really don't know. I love Savage raiding. I love learning and beating the bosses. But was it worth giving up 2 whole days, 2 whole evenings a week? Was it worth the stress that came along with it? I'm not sure. I think going into the next tier, I do have a plan. I'm either going to go all in and join a hardcore static that raids 3 to 4 times a week, so that I can clear it in the first few months, so we don't hit that low motivation burnout phase where people leave and progression slows down, or it just slowly winds down. I want to go in hard and get it done, or I want to just go in casually in the Party Finder to see what it's like and when I fancy it. That's my experience with Savage raiding. I don't know how many people can relate to a similar experience, or maybe you're a pro, you've done it for years and you just go in there and get it done in a week. I don't know. But overall, the question was, is Savage raiding worth it in Final Fantasy XIV? Yes, I think it is. I really, really do. I think Savage raiding is an incredible experience and some of the most fun content you can get involved in Final Fantasy XIV. You're going to learn a hell of a lot about your class, mechanics, teamwork. You should make some friends, and you should really enjoy it. Obviously, it depends on your group and your situation. When we didn't make progress, we sat smashed our heads against the wall on the same mechanic all night, or something goes wrong, I was sat there thinking I could be at a restaurant or a bar with friends having fun, or I could be working on a video or playing Elden Ring or some other game. And it was feeling like a chore. But when it was good, it was so good. And I honestly think playing the hard content and playing the challenging content, for me, was one of the most rewarding parts of the game. And I think it's up to you as an individual to decide if the time, the effort, and the commitment are worth the experience, the progression, and the achievement that you get from Savage raiding. I don't regret the experience I got, and I think it's definitely worth trying Savage raiding at least once. Maybe you'll love it, maybe you won't, but you'll definitely learn a lot and make memories along the way. But that's it, folks. Just want to tell my story and share what I went through as a new player and how it affected my view of Savage raiding. If anything, it made me like it more, but also made me realize how hard it is, not just mechanically, but from a time point of view and an endurance point of view. I hope you enjoyed this more rambly sort of video. Let me know if you want to see more like this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments on your Savage experiences or inexperience. Also, consider subscribing if you want to see more MMORPG and Final Fantasy XIV content. But that's it for this video. Take care, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next one.